What's cracking, everybody? I'm Scott, and this week there really hasn't been all that much news around the Kraken, as we are now fully in NHL offseason, but there still has been a few things, so while this may be a shorter What's Cracking episode, we still do have a few things to go over. And we'll start with the two player signings in Carsen Twarynski and Cale Fleury. Now, you might remember that both of these guys came to the Kraken originally via the expansion draft, with Twarynski coming over from the Philadelphia Flyers and Cale Fleury being their pick from the Montreal Canadiens. Now, both of these picks at the time that they were made during the expansion draft had plenty of people asking questions as to whether or not they were part of a side deal, as they didn't seem to make a whole lot of sense otherwise, but as we of course know, there weren't any side deals. That being said, both of them have now been signed to $750,000 two-way contracts that likely points that both of these guys will be starting off at the AHL level. So while it still might be fair to question why these two guys were picked straight up from the teams that they were taken from in the expansion draft, especially in the case of Twarynski from the Flyers, it does seem like there are a couple of reasons that they were picked, with the main one being salary cap space. And now, especially with them both signed to minimum deals that will likely start them at the AHL level, it's clear that that was the way that the Kraken were looking. And at the very least, they're still both young players that are now in the Kraken system, so regardless of how their careers project at the moment, they could still develop into contributors for the Kraken down the road. Which is still more than we can say for John Quenneville and Gavin Bayreuther, who came from the Blackhawks and Blue Jackets. Plus, at least when it comes to Fleury, although there may have been other options the Kraken also could have taken a shot at there, it's pretty clear, I think, now that avoiding Carey Price and his contract definitely worked out for the better of the Kraken, now having Drieger and Grubauer in goal, again signed for less money between the two of them than Price would be paid by himself. But those two weren't the only additions that the Kraken made over this last week, as they also added their first ever goaltending coach to the coaching staff in Andrew Allen. Now, somewhat like those two RFA signings, Allen was already a part of the Kraken organization before signing on as the goaltending coach, as he has served for the last year plus as the pro scout for goaltending for the Kraken, which did include the entire lead up to the expansion draft and the free agency period that saw the Kraken pick up all three of their current goaltenders. Just like with the rest of the Kraken's coaching staff, at least to this point anyway, this won't be his first go-around at the NHL level, as he was a part of the Buffalo Sabres organization for 4 years before joining the Kraken after the 2018-19 season. Now, I get that there might be some concern over the fact that he's coming from Buffalo, which hasn't necessarily been the most successful franchise over the last, decade or so. But with that having been said, and honestly, especially considering how things have gone for Buffalo over the last few years, it's almost extra impressive what he was able to do in helping coach up Linus Ullmark through the Sabres system, who did turn out to be one of the few bright-ish spots for that team over the last couple of seasons, before now moving on to the Boston Bruins. So if he can bring some of that coaching ability to already a strong goaltending duo and even Decord at the AHL level for the Kraken, on top of having a better team around those goalies, this could definitely work out pretty well for Seattle. Also, it's definitely fair to mention that he has had quite a bit of time to familiarize himself with these guys, and was certainly a big part of the reason that Seattle ended up with the goalies they did, so it's fair to say that he's pretty familiar with the room that he'll be coaching. Moving on though, outside of those hirings and signings that the Kraken made over this last week, we did also get to see the start times for the games on the Kraken schedule. Now, of course, we've already seen the schedule for a couple of weeks now, but now we actually have the start times for games. And at least when it comes to the home games, it's a schedule that people are going to be pretty familiar with, at least if you've ever followed the Mariners, as the home games will be starting at 7 p.m. Pacific time, local for Seattle, except for the Sunday ones, which will be starting at 6 p.m. So the good news here is that for people that are hoping to get to a couple of games this season, they will be happening safely after at least typical work hours anyway. And as far as getting to games, well, at least that will be towards the tail end of rush hour, but I think we have already known and accepted that getting to games during weekdays is going to take some time, which, especially with the arena being where it is at the Seattle Center, can definitely be a bit of a headache with traffic. But again, that's why the Kraken have been working so much with public transport and trying to find a number of different ways that fans can get to the stadium without driving there directly. The only real potential wrinkle that this schedule might throw into the mix, not that it was terribly unexpected, is the fact that with the same game start times as home games for the Mariners, there are likely going to be some games towards the end of the NHL season and beginning of the MLB season that do overlap, which is important when it comes to TV, as Root Sports does carry both the Mariners and now Kraken. But of course, we're just going to have to wait and see if they end up with a streaming service or what the secondary channels will be if there is an overlap with games. Even if they are looking surprisingly competitive this year and are supposed to be getting better over the next few years, but again, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it, if we do eventually come to it. And then finally, of course, the team has been keeping us updated with pictures of the construction progress of both the arena and practice facilities, with some pretty cool images of those dual scoreboards that will be pretty unique to Seattle going up at Climate Pledge Arena, as well as the actual advertising going on the boards at the practice facility, which now pretty much just needs to be painted and iced for it to be ready for the team to start practicing on it. Not to mention some pretty cool looking locker rooms for the players, including the one at Climate Pledge Arena, which is shaped like an ice rink, which could come in pretty handy between periods and games for, let's just say, strategy sessions and stuff like that. Regardless though, again, honestly, it just continues to be awesome to see this all coming together for the first year of this franchise in Seattle. But with that, we have pretty much reached the end of this one, again, with there not really being all that much significant news around the Kraken. So if you have made it to this point, as always, thank you very much for watching. If you did like or enjoy this video, use those buttons down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comment section, and until next time, be good to each other and go Kraken.